Hola, my friend. I'm Melissa V. Cartwright, and welcome to the Passionate Performer Podcast. You have a voice that deserves to be heard. And you also deserve to have a performance career where you don't feel like you're sacrificing who you are to meet the demands of the industry. I'm a Latin singer-songwriter, actress, and voice coach with 25 years of experience. And so I get it. I understand the grind, the joys, the ups and downs, and everything in between. We cannot keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. So we are here to help you problem solve those challenges, figure out why we're feeling the way we do, and give you the next right step. We are not here to mess around. We are ready to take action. Let's go. My friend, this is a juicy topic. And if you hit play on this or you're just stumbling along here because you're kind of curious, especially by the title, like, why can't I stop crying when I sing? And you're like, well, who really cares? Just don't do it. Well, this episode's not for you then. But if you hit play on this because you were like, oh my gosh, this actually happens to me a lot, but I'm too embarrassed to talk about it, we're going to let go of that embarrassment, right? Because we are here to take messy action. Now, there's a lot of components here. And when I even thought about addressing this, well, number one, I decided to share it here publicly because it's something that has come up a lot over the years, especially working with singers who decide to sing in front of someone, right? Whether you are starting that journey and you're like, I'm ready to share my voice, or you've been at it for a while and you have gotten to a point of dysregulation, like meaning you don't even know what happens in your body anymore when you sing or when you're performing at your gigs every night or whenever it is that you're getting up in front of an audience, because you have learned to either cope with it, shove your emotions down to get the job done. But again, you're here because you're tired of doing things the way you've always done it. And getting emotional, aka crying, when you sing is a whole hell of a lot more normal than you think it is. So if you are pressing play from a place of courage and vulnerability, can I just say how freaking amazing you are just to even allow yourself or give yourself the permission to let someone else talk about this or even indulge the subject. I'm going to share a lot from my personal experience, as well as some things that we can walk ourselves through to help you get to a place where this is not standard procedure for you when you do get up and sing, right? Like you want to be able to deliver a performance without crying or the act of crying impeding or getting in the way of what it is you want to do. So that's the goal, but we're also going to give you just some things to chew on, as we always do, so that you can decide what is the next step I need to take so that I can get up and perform and feel like I'm also a resilient performer. Like I'm no longer letting this stop me from getting the job done. Not just getting the job done, but actually enjoying what it is you want to do when you sing. So, why are you feeling this way? Let's come at this from a few angles, okay? Because this could be an hour-long talk. We're not going to do that. What I'd like to talk about first is the narrative of why crying is a bad, quote-unquote, bad thing. And if this is the first time you and I are meeting, I hate using words like this is good, this is bad, because unless we're talking about morals and ethics, singing is not one of those. Your singing cannot go out and donate money to the poor or go perform an atrocity, while you're performing, while you're singing, right? I think we need to detach and redefine and be very specific and detailed with the words that we use to describe our singing. Using things like good and bad, which we do all the dang time, assigns moral qualities to the sounds of our voices. And we're not going to do that anymore. Let's talk about what happens to the sound of our voice when we get emotional, when we cry, and we're also trying to sing at the same time. Well, it may get shaky. It may get breathy. You might suffer pitch a little bit, right? You might get a little pitchy. You might not actually be able to complete a phrase. Let's just get down to the brass tacks, as they say, of what is happening with the sound that we make when we feel that well of emotion or when we're trying to suppress tears. So number one, you see that obviously as a negative attribute because that's not what you intended to do. You want to actually sing the notes you rehearsed and do the thing. So yeah, obviously, it's getting in the way of you feeling like you have accomplished the mission that you set out for your performance. Totally get that. So that's reason number one. Let's dig a little deeper. You may have come from a singing environment where this is actually welcomed. I'm speaking specifically to a lot of my contemporary worship leaders. If you're a singer in a faith-based organization, sometimes your singing is expected to be very expressive, very emotionally expressive, to the point that if crying happens in the middle of you singing, it's often applauded or seen as a sign of spiritual devotion. That's how I grew up in my faith upbringing, in my singing environments when it came to church. It was almost expected. I almost expected to experience that on a weekly basis anytime I sang in church. And like I said, I was then in a position where I was the song leader in that very charismatic setting. It was welcomed. Nobody really thought about it. It was seen as a sign of you having a very deep spiritual experience, okay? So we're going to put that in one category. So number one, you want to get a job done. You feel like it's not stopping, it is stopping you. Number two, maybe you are in environments, singing environments where that is often very, very comfortable. And so maybe the challenge your experience is, I don't always want to do that. I don't want my singing, my performance, my sharing of my voice to be equated with tears, physical signs of tears, as though what I'm offering is not important. Does that make sense? Some people are like, I don't always cry when I sing in those environments, but I'm still having a great time. I still feel good about what I did. I don't want to feel less than just because I didn't force myself to have tears in my eyes when I sang, right? That's a very, might seem like odd thing, but it is a thing that happens. Category number three, your tears when you sing are a byproduct of your anxiety. Yeah, that's probably the most common experience I have seen happen as a voice and performance coach, as people are working through either performance anxiety or narratives that they have carried throughout their entire lives. And the act of, I am going to do something that scares me, or someone has given me permission to take up space and show up as myself to do this, can cause all sorts of tearful reactions. There's an element of, man, I just want to get the job done. Why is this stopping me? Kind of coupled with, that's stopping me because I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling vulnerable, or you just want to be able to control it. At the end of the day, that's what you want to do, right? You want to be the one to decide when you turn off the faucet and when you turn it on when it comes to tears. Because then I think of my actors who are also having to do this for the job. You may be hired to perform, or maybe you're a musical theater performer, and you are in a very emotional role. I did this for the last 2 summers in a beautiful show where I originated a role, and it was heavy. And the first song that I sang had to be done through lots of emotion, sometimes to the point of tears, and still deliver a solid vocal. So tears can be complicated, right? But I think we need to actually start from a place of extreme honesty and vulnerability and call it what it is, which is exactly what we do here on the Passionate Performer podcast, right? So let's just call it what it is, and acknowledge that you are bringing all sorts of experiences to your performance, to the act of singing. And so, why does our body decide to do this, right, in the moment that we are trying to sing? There's all sorts of scientific research that you can Google after this episode. I want to highlight a couple of things that have been really resourceful for me that you can chew on as well, and also give yourself permission to experience this, okay? If you have been the person that's been shoving down the emotions, you've been shoving down the tears, you have done everything you can physically do to manipulate, right? Or force yourself into not letting this happen. But all of a sudden you're having episodes where it's almost uncontrollable. It's like a well that springs up within you and you can't control it. Here's a couple of things at play. Super popular book, Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score. I've referenced it in other podcast episodes. I reference it also within my program when we work on mindset issues for performing singers. If you continue to suppress, you should not be surprised that the body is going to force you into a state of, you better deal with this. And so there's that suppression. You're fighting with your own body and with your nervous system because you're not giving yourself space to actually express this. Case in point, here's a real life scenario. You're getting ready for this gig. Maybe it's the first show. The stakes are high and it means a lot to you. In your rehearsal time, if you constantly feel this, oh my gosh, this urge to cry, whether it's because it's an emotional song, maybe you're having a very vulnerable moment. It's inspired a memory from your past, right? You have done a lot of work emotionally, mentally, even spiritually to get to this point of allowing your voice to express yourself this way. Maybe it is the overwhelm of giving yourself permission to express yourself that way. I have witnessed within my own private sessions with my amazing singers the power of that vulnerability. Just the other day, I had a beautiful singer who has sung for years, but she also grew up in circumstances where she was not given permission by her caretakers or caregivers to make those noises. She always had to quiet herself or make herself smaller in order to sing. She came in for a voice lesson. And I referenced her as being an artist. I said, yeah, you're actually this beautiful jazz artist. And I saw the emotion come. And I was like, let's talk about that for a little bit. And she just realized no one's ever called me that before, nor have I ever given myself permission to refer myself to that as an artist. And so when you're giving yourself permission to experience all of this, give yourself space. The point of that is you have got to allow yourself to experience the emotion instead of shutting it down immediately. Rehearsal times, personal practice times, even if you're working with your mentor, your coach, those are times where you should feel okay to do that. I hope that you're working with someone who gives you the space to work that out and who doesn't try to rush by it either with you. And if so, maybe time to shop around, honestly, because times have changed and we have a breadth of resources at our disposal to help you navigate what's happening mentally and emotionally as you actually do the physical act of singing. So I hope that you have a space where you can explore all of that. So number one, don't suppress. Create environments, spaces where you can flesh that out. More often than not, I'll say 8 out of 10 times. When I know that I've given myself permission to do all that in my personal practice time, I find that even in the performance, if I still feel that my heart kind of like, ooh, just that twinge, right? Or the urge where I will cry, or I feel like crying, I don't always cry. You can say that I'm controlling it, but really what I do is I remind myself in the moment, You know what? Yeah, that's a pretty tender moment. And it's okay to let your audience know that. All right, we're going to get to that in just a second. Let's go back to rehearsal time. Give yourself the space to experience whatever emotions come up inside of you when you're singing that song in particular. So that's one facet of that. Number two, you can try to trick your body into not crying. Some common things are things like pinching the earlobes, things that are synonymous with vagus nerve activation. If you've never heard of vagus nerve activation, the vagus nerve runs inside of our body. It's responsible for lots of things such as digestion, inhalation, and relaxation. And there are things that we can do somatically to our bodies to help activate the vagus nerve, get it to work, get those relaxation, magical superpowers that our body has to get us to a state of regulation. So one thing that you can try is people pinch their earlobes or running fingers down the sides of neck because that activates the vagus nerve, gets you to chillax. Another sensation is pulling up on the ears, like you're making a monkey face. That can help as well. Deep breathing also activates the vagus nerves. If you're a person that practices anxiety management, breath work is not foreign to you. Make it on your nerves because you want it to work quickly. And sometimes instead of emotionally processing our way through everything, we just need to let breath override the system. You can even practice square breathing. That's usually timed breath. In for 4 counts, hold your breath for 2, then slowly release for 6 counts. There's all sorts of variations that you can try with this. In fact, we have a whole library of breath work within our Passionate Performer program to help you with that pre-performance regulation state when everything is super activated. All of that works the same for when you feel the well of emotions, when you feel the crying surge up within you. But let me tell you something. Because here's what's happening. If you have not done the work of allowing yourself to release the emotions, to experience those emotions within your rehearsal time, and all you've done is suppress during that rehearsal time, and then you try to go do like a magic little, physical manipulation, don't be mad that it doesn't work. This requires a level of working through all the emotions. Think of these as key ingredients that work in tandem with one another. All right. You can also do visualization work. Please hear me. This is not fake it till you make it. I hate that term because, again, you have not given yourself permission to experience what is actually happening in your body. So this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about working through your breath work, working through those somatic exercises, working on giving space for all of the emotions so that you can get to a place of honesty. And hear me, visualization, affirmation work, you can call it manifestation. I don't care what you call it. All right. It is scientifically proven that when you actually give yourself space for processing emotions, just as much as you give yourself space for positive self-talk, for imagining, visualizing what you want your performance to actually look like, this can also be part of your toolkit to help you set yourself up for the best, most optimal performance that is within your control. Okay? Case in point. We have pre-show meditations inside of our program, and we have one for rehearsal. We have one for before the show. We even have one for what happens after a less than ideal show. You know why? Because you need to practice actually visualizing all the key elements of what is going to take place in your performance. And you might be listening to this and be like, well, Melissa, sometimes I get booked for something that I don't know what the room looks like, right? Like, let's say you signed up for an audition and it's at a brand new location. Totally get that. You know what happens when I don't have all that information, when I don't know what the room looks like, when it's the first time I've ever traveled there, when I don't know who's going to be in the room? I focus on the things that I do know. Like, I know those 16 bars like the back of my hand. I know which blocking choices I'm choosing to make at which points in the song. I know what I want my audience to experience when they hear me deliver this lyric. I know I look cute. I have planned that audition outfit. Yes, I have. Because again, these are all things that I know I can control, right? Or that I know I've contributed to. I've practiced this enough. And again, that is such a key word, practice. It's probably a trigger word for you as a musician, okay? We have to practice our singing. We have to practice our music. You have got to also practice mindset preparation. My friend, it is not a magic wand. It is not a magic spell. It is not something that you call into existence. I don't really care what your spiritual religious beliefs are right now. This is a practice. And if you continue to push, 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 shove, 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 close that lid on that box, bracata, and then not do anything about it and think that rehearsing a song 100 times in a row from beginning to end is what's going to save you in the middle of an emotional performance, I gotta say, how's that going for you? Seriously, please send me a message, right? Because the body keeps the score. So do your emotions. All that is part of your body. Now, here are some points for crying, all right? Because right now we have kind of teed up crying as though it's a bad thing. Oof, I even used the word I didn't want to use, right? That it's something we don't want to happen. Dr. Nicole LePera is one of my favorite psychologists. She's a renowned author. Please go look up her social media account. She's known as the holistic psychologist. And in fact, her work has actually been transformative for me too. Can we just remind ourselves that the benefits of crying, the benefits of actually allowing yourself to release in this way actually lowers cortisol and oxytocin. Let's talk about those two things. Cortisol usually is like the, something's wrong hormone. There's signals of stress to your body, whether you are lifting 50-pound weights or you feel like you're about to get attacked by a bear. We need to release that so our body gets back to a regulated state. Oxytocin is good. This is why you are moved to tears when you experience someone else's singing that has moved you, whether it was the beauty of it, whether it was the message. And if that is happening for you as you sing over yourself, right? Please give yourself to experience that too. You deserve it. You have worked your ass off. You have worked so hard. Like, I can get emotional thinking of it because I can think of just about every single singer I have or currently work with right now, where I've had the honor of witnessing what that looks like, right? When you can really get to a place of satisfaction. Dr. Jon Skidmore is a psychologist as well, has done tons of research and work on helping artists with performance anxiety in particular. And there comes a point where you cannot treat your actual performance as though it's another experimentation ground. Like, you can't get to your performance and then try to one-up yourself within the performance. There comes a state where he suggests you need to declare that you have done everything you can do. My preparation is complete. And I kind of want to fact check myself on that a little bit and backtrack and correct myself. If you've done that, if you have declared your preparation complete, then if you do want to play within your performance, that's a whole different level of experimentation. And I will say of artistry for yourself, my friend, that you are so well rehearsed, you have done the internal mental preparation for this performance that you can have that level of freedom when you hit the stage, right? That is what we're going for, because you have said, this performance is not about, let me see if I hit the note. You have said, I've done everything I can do. It's just time to go do the thing. It's time to go do the thing. And I've witnessed that in my life too. I talked a little bit about my cabaret in last episode, and that is exactly the joy that I experience. Despite any vocal challenges or anything like that, I can look you straight into this camera and right here on this microphone, if you're listening to this, and say, there was such a deep, deep sense of satisfaction and play and enjoying the people in the room with me because I put in the vocal work and the mental work as well. I'm not a therapist. I have done paratherapeutic training as a voice and performance coach. So I do want to encourage you that sometimes this feels outside of the realm of what you can do inside of a voice lesson, or what you can do inside of your personal practice, or what you can do inside of a course or a membership. Please, please, please also make space and time to see a professional to talk through these things as well. If you are curious about therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists that work specifically with singers, I have got some wonderful resources for you. Feel free to send me a message and I'll be happy to send those your way. But don't underestimate the power of having a professional therapist work through these things with you. The singers that I have seen just really exercise deep resilience are the ones that took their vocal training and their mental training very, very seriously and learned how to put those two together to show up over and over again as performing vocalists. I have some that were crying on day one of their voice lessons because it was such a vulnerable moment for them to talk about the challenges, to even let someone, which at the time I was still technically a stranger, hear them out loud. And they are out there doing community theater. They're booking regular shows. Some of them have been invited to different creative gigging opportunities. And this is available to you as well. Don't underestimate the power of giving yourself space to let those emotions bubble up and do their thing. Don't underestimate the power of breath work, somatic exercises, and how you can couple those two to work these emotions out into your singing. And of course, doing the work, doing therapeutic work, letting that complement your vocal training as well. So I'm going to leave you with this. If you still end up crying in the middle of your performance, so what? So what? Please hear me. Don't see that as a sign of defeat, okay? I will say this and I will stand by this over and over and over again. Audiences can say that they are moved by a perfect, quote unquote, vocal. You create fans because you connect with them. And what connects an audience with a singer is not just the sounds that they are making. It is the story that they are sharing. I have been moved to ugly crying tears, okay? Like crocodile tears, as they say. Not because the singer's voice was immaculate and crystal clear. More often than not, there was a rawness to it. You could hear the life that they had lived. And as they were delivering that performance and that lyric in that moment, if I were to sit here and analyze that vocal and tell you, sure, their voice was quivering. It sounded like they were breathy. I'm not sure if they took a big enough breath. I'm not sure they nailed that riff. Who freaking cares? I connected because they shared their story and they shared their honesty. And part of what happens if you do get emotional in a performance is that you are just being honest with your audience. In moments where I did all I could do in the prep, and that happened in the middle of a performance, when I was honest with the audience and said, whew, this one gets me every time, you can see almost everybody's shoulders just lower and like, oh yeah, me too. And I take a breath and I begin to sing. And more often than not, I can stabilize. I can stabilize the sound. If you need a backup plan, you can always shorten your phrases. Maybe you don't need to necessarily belt that, all right? You might deliver that vocal in the most beautiful head voice mix ever. And it's still going to be a stellar performance. And these are things where, again, your vocal training and what you have done is going to support the emotional, mental, even spiritual preparation. Trust that process. Trust the marrying of all those things because, my friend, that is where you show up with confidence. That is where you do it. Even if you're shaking in your boots a bit, that's where, even with all those things leading up to that moment, and even with what maybe wasn't the clearest vocal performance, but you get off of that stage and that's where the high comes. That's where that adrenaline surge comes. That's where that, oh my gosh, put me back up there. I want to do it again. You cry because you're a human being. You're a human singer, and we welcome the entire human experience into your story, in your preparation, and in your performance. If you're curious about how this all works together, marrying the mental preparation with your vocal stylization and prep, and building this artistry for you that really is full of confidence because you know exactly who you are and how you want to sing, that is the heartbeat of what we do inside the Passionate Performer program. All that information is in the show notes. Hey, if you found this beneficial, let us know. Leave a rating. That actually helps other singers just like you find this episode as well, so we can spread this good news of you got this. You are made to do this. You are meant for this moment, and you are going to do a stellar job. Hasta la próxima, my friend.